can slit our throats.
Yeah, what do you say? So that's why U.S. soldiers and Afghan soldiers are here. We're trying to protect you from the Taliban.
You leave now, you go back to your base, and then they come.
In this area, there are Taliban. You're in this village, they're in that village. You go to that village, they go to the next one.
At Pashmal South the next day, a Taliban attack on a patrol just 500 metres from the base. Air support is called in. The Afghan soldiers think they've seen the fighter, but he disappears into the undergrowth.
After yesterday's attack, this patrol has now been set up less than 200 metres outside of the base, because that's how close the Taliban are now getting. But that's a success on how it was just a few months ago, when they couldn't even stick their heads outside of the gate without drawing gunfire.
But our gains they're not reversible. You know, this is going to be another summer or two that's going to determine what our true success is here.
Success to him means holding on to these gains. To the local people, it's about backing the winning side, and they're not sure yet who that will be. Sue Turton, Al Jazeera, Kandahar.
The unrest in Libya is adding to the number of illegal migrants from North Africa trying to reach Europe. For many, the first stop is the Italian island of Lampedusa. Tanya Page reports.
Boats crowded with people hoping to make a better life in Europe. This annual wave of illegal migrants from North Africa is predictable and unstoppable, and this season is promising to be busy. In just one night, boats carrying more than 1,000 people landed in the Italian island of Lampedusa. Most are Tunisian and Egyptian. Authorities fear many Libyans will follow.
So far we have contained the impact well, despite the very high number of migrants. We've had more than 1,000 people arriving overnight, and we've welcomed them at the holding centre. Fortunately, we had only 314 migrants to start with, so the numbers have stayed beneath a critical level.
Thousands of illegal migrants have arrived in Lampedusa this year. In February, over 4,000 Tunisians landed during one weekend of fine weather. The island's holding centre has a capacity of about 800, so they're quickly ferried or flown to larger detention centres in Italy. But some locals worry about the effect on tourism.
I hope they don't go around breaking things and misbehaving, and let's hope that tourists will still come this summer. Otherwise, this year will be very difficult for us.
In my opinion, people are afraid of Gaddafi, of what's happening in Libya and the war taking place in the Mediterranean. It's not a question of the migrants. Migrants have been coming here for 20 years, and we've never had problems with tourism.
Tunisia and Libya have agreements with Italy to prevent illegal immigration, but both have far greater concerns right now. Italy has asked its European neighbours for help, but many have refused, saying it's too early to predict migrant numbers. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera.
Britain's Prince Andrew and his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson are in the spotlight once again, this time over their relationship with a convicted US sex offender. More from Paul Brennan.
As the UK's special representative on trade, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, has spent the past decade travelling the world promoting British business interests internationally. Speaking on Al Jazeera in 2008, the Duke described his patriotic pride in the role.
I've taken on the business community in this country as a champion for them. And I believe it's very important that they should get the best advantage and the best opportunities, because our competitors in other nations will do exactly the same thing.
Achieving the best business opportunities can be far from straightforward. But Prince Andrew's close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, the American billionaire convicted on underage sex charges in 2008, is highly questionable. And the recent emergence of this 2001 photo of the prince with one of Epstein's teenage masseurs has further damaged Andrew's credibility. Consider this, though. In 2005, the German car giant Volkswagen was found to have been operating a $2 million slush fund to pay for brothel visits, Viagra tablets and shopping trips. And it wasn't until 2008 that Deutsche Bank told its executives that payments to prostitutes would no longer be regarded as legitimate business expenses. By comparison, the prince's conduct appears blameless.
the reality is that many people in business are working in a world where corruption and prostitution are part and parcel of how deals have to get done. And this is the unfortunate nexus that Prince Andrew finds himself part of. But you have to say that he hasn't exercised particularly good judgment, particularly given the key role that the royal family has in representing standards in public life.
And that fact, above all others, is perhaps the most relevant.
The standards required of the royal family, of the monarchy, are rather higher than those required perhaps of salesmen for British exports abroad.
The Prince, fourth in line to the British throne, has endured a difficult relationship with the British media, and on Monday the Prime Minister's office came out and contradicted newspaper reports that Andrew's trade role was being reviewed. The Prince cannot be sacked from his unpaid position, but there remain some who would like to see him resign voluntarily. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera.
Hello from me, David Foster. These are the headlines here on Al Jazeera. Gulf Arab states are now calling on the United Nations to enforce a no-fly zone over Libya. The forces of the Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, are continuing to hit back hard against rebel positions. The rebels themselves have been defending the important oil town of Ras Lanuf on Monday. The pro-Gaddafi counter-offensive seems for now to have halted any opposition advance on the capital, Tripoli. The US president says NATO is considering all of its options, including military ones, before deciding on a response to the crisis in Libya. And Al Jazeera has learned that the British citizens released by Libyan rebels on Sunday were captured after an exchange of gunfire. 8 British people, including a diplomat and members of the elite military force, the SAS, were captured soon after they landed in the east of the country. Egypt's caretaker Prime Minister says restoring security is a priority for his government. Assam Sharaf spoke to journalists hours after a new-look cabinet was sworn in. Egypt's prosecutor, meanwhile, has ordered the detention of 47 police officers for allegedly burning documents at several state security headquarters. There have been riots in one of Yemen's biggest prisons. Police fired tear gas after inmates started chanting anti-government slogans. Officials deny reports that some prisoners were injured. Security has been increased there now. Around 200 Shia protesters have been holding a rally outside the US Embassy in Bahrain, calling for Washington to stop backing the monarchy. Shia Muslims have been pushing for more rights in protests directed at the Sunni royal family. Vigilante groups loyal to Côte d'Ivoire's disputed president have told Al Jazeera they'll do whatever it takes to keep him in power. Backers of Laurent Gbagbo have set up roadblocks in Abidjan to flush out anyone they think is supporting the opposition. Some 200,000 people have fled the city so far. 360 have died since November's presidential runoff. US Defense Secretary Robert Gates has repeated Washington's apology for the mistaken killing of 9 Afghan boys. Gates described the deaths as a setback. He's in Afghanistan for talks as US troops get ready to begin a phased withdrawal in July. The Afghan President Hamid Karzai